Okay. So Kal Kadosh, Boker Tov, the morning. Also, we're going to be saying Chodesh Tov also for tomorrow. Even though we say Mima'atim B'Simcha, that we minimize on happiness during this month, Be'ezrat Hashem, hopefully we should only actually see beautiful things, only Simachot Be'ezrat Hashem.
Amen.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with the following. There's a very famous concept that we know that during these 3 weeks, we're in mourning. What does it mean that we're in mourning? We're mourning over the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash. Without the Bet HaMikdash, we don't have our true service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah, and we just have to understand why was this like this? Because of Sinat Chinam, because of hatred. How do we fix the hatred? So the Gemara Metzia says, how do we fix Sinat Chinam? By Ahavat Chinam. What does that mean? Do the opposite. Start loving people. Now, what does that mean, loving people? The Gemara says that if you have somebody that you love, ohev lifrok, vesoneh liton. You have somebody that you love, that you have to take things down from the animal. And you have a soneh, somebody that you hate, that you have to put things on the animal. You have to put on a burden or to unload a burden, to load or to unload. Says the Gemara, usually, even though if they were both friends or both enemies or whatever, it's a different halacha. Here in this case, there's a mitzvah to help your enemy. Why? Says the Gemara, kedei lachof et yitzro, in order to conquer our yetzer, in order to work on ourselves, to become better people. And the question that we ask ourselves is, how does that help? I've got an enemy right in front of me. I'm going to go and I'm going to help them now. And all of a sudden, because I help them, they're going to become different people. What does that mean? But rather, the explanation is Al-Pi, the Mesilat Yesharim. The Ramchal comes and he says, in the end of Perek Zayin, he says, Hama'asim achitzoniyim, our external actions, they are for sure going to awaken something internally, which means that the external actions has an influence on us. If a person's going to come and they're going to dress in a certain way, it's going to influence them. Some people say, Rabbi, but why do you have to dress that way? Why can't you dress? Well, very simple. If you dress with a suit, you're going to go to a wedding. You're not going to dress in a suit and go to the beach, right? The same thing. If you're going to be dressed to go to the beach, you're not going to go to a wedding, because the external, how you are dressed or how you are, that will have an influence on the inside as well. Not only just on the outside, but also on the inside. Okay, this is what's actually brought down, right, in the Mesilat Yesharim. So according to this, now we understand, right? What does that mean? We know that a person, he has an enemy, but he has to change. He has to become better. How does he do that? By coming and starting to love him, by coming and starting to give him things. All of a sudden it changes the human being, and now he's not going to be an enemy anymore. He's actually going to start liking him. And that's exactly what we're supposed to be training ourselves doing these 3 weeks, to come and to start doing this. Now, we think that chesed is only doing an action of chesed, right? Which means that we think that chesed is an action of doing chesed. However, though, Kam Chachamim, and they say the following. They say, the Siftei Chaim comes and he says, there's a beautiful Gemara Masechet Makot. The Gemara at the end of Makot comes and starts taking the entire Torah and starts to make a synopsis of it. So they came, each one of the rabbis, and they started saying, you know what, the entire Torah is based upon how many mitzvot, and then how many mitzvot, and how many mitzvot. Comes Micha, and he says the Torah is based upon 3 mitzvot. What are the 3 mitzvot that the Torah is based upon? That the Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to, what is he asking from you? Asot mishpat, do justice. Avat chesed, love, doing chesed. Ve'atznei alechet im Elokecha, and tzniut. Whether it is in the actions that you do, you have to be modest. Whether it is in how we dress, we have to be modest. Modesty. Hatznei alechet im Hashem Elokecha. You shouldn't flaunt the mitzvot that you do. You shouldn't flaunt the money that we have. All these things is called tzniut. So three mitzvot. That's Micha. Until finally Chabakuk was the last one that he came. He said that the entire Torah is based upon one mitzvah. Tzadik ve'emunato yichyeh. Emunah. Okay, fine. Now the Siftei Chaim comes and he says, we know that chesed is better than tzedakah. Yeah? Why? How do we know that chesed is better than tzedakah? Chesed could be done whether with your body or with your money. Tzedakah is only with your money. Chesed could be done with the people that are alive and that have passed away. Tzedakah are only for people that are alive, not with the people that passed away. Chesed could be done whether to rich people or poor people. Tzedakah can only be done to poor people. So because of that, the Gemara actually says that Chesed is greater than Tzedakah in 3 different ways. Okay, fine. But now when we're going to come and we're going to speak about Chesed, what do we think about Chesed? What is Chesed? So imagine right now, you're in sunny Florida. It's 92 degrees outside, which Baruch Hashem, it's only 92 and not 102. And it's boiling hot and people are hot. So imagine you're in the work and the work does not give you anything what to drink. And comes one person and he's a Baal Chesed. He comes and he brings in a cooler with everything with ice and drinks. Anybody wants a beer, here's a beer. Anybody wants a Fanta, he's a Fanta, Gatorade, whatever, a Coke, everything. Not only that, not only does he bring it in and he, every single hour, other hour, he comes around asking people, do you want something to drink? Do you want? And he offers it to them. He gives it to them. What a chesed. We would start blessing the guy from today until tomorrow. Imagine what it is. Imagine you have a guy that comes every single other hour and starts giving you a drink to drink. It replenishes you. You feel incredible. Wow. Yeah, show me this guy. Right? We have to bring him to our work as well. Yeah, our jobs as well. Yeah, okay. Imagine all of a sudden, and it gets in the middle of the winter time. But now we're changing the demographics. Now we're going up to Canada. And it's freezing cold in the middle of the winter. And everyone's, their hands are like this, or their fingers on the computer, and it starts freezing. Yeah, it's so cold there. And what happens is all of a sudden you get the same tzaddik that comes in, and he brings an urn. And he starts bringing coffee and tea. Tea time, coffee time. And he knows who likes sugar, who doesn't like sugar. Do you want to put milk in the tea? That's for the British friends over there, right? Or you want to put milk in the coffee? Who likes, doesn't like, all these things. What a tzaddik. You're going to say, who's this guy? You have to show me who this tzaddik is. Avat chesed, mamash, abal chesed. Now, if you're going to tell me, right, is there anybody greater than this guy? Imagine, the guy, mamash, you were thirsty, you were this. He gave you, you replenished you. You go over whether it's the cold drinks, the hot drinks. Is there anybody that's greater than this guy? So the answer is there's somebody greater. And many times we don't even realize who it is. What does that mean? So let's explain. In Parashat Vayechi, Yaakov Avinu comes and he gives a blessing to Yehuda. And he says to Yehuda, Chachlili enai miyain ulven shinai mechalav. What does that mean? The Gemara in Ketuvot brings down in Kuf Yudalef Amubet 111b, Knesset Israel, Bnei Israel come and tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please show us your eyes. And if you show us your eyes, that's much better than coming and giving us wine. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, show us your teeth. Because if you show us your teeth, that's much better than giving us milk. Ulben shinayim mechalav, and chachlili enaim, the eyes, from yain. From here, it says Resh Lakish, Tov amalbin shinayim lechavero, yoter mimashkeu chalav. It is much greater, somebody that's going to come, and they're going to whiten, they're going to show you the whiteness of their teeth. Make sure you go to the dentist before. Yeah, we have to make sure the whiteness of our teeth more than giving them a glass of milk. Meaning, I would come and tell you, listen, somebody came and they gave me a glass of milk. Ooh, Baal Chesed. He gave me the Gatorade and the Coke and the tea and the coffee with the milk and everything. He's a Baal Chesed. There's a Baal Chesed that's greater than that. You know who the Baal Chesed that's greater than that is? Tov amalbin shinayim lechavero. If you come in with a big, nice smile and you say, how are you doing? Good morning. How was your day? That person is a bigger Baal Chesed than the one that came and he started giving you, whether it's all the drinks and all the different things. That person's a bigger Baal Chesed. And says the Siftei Chaim, HaChesed HaGadol Bioter, the greatest chesed that a person could do is Sever Panim Yachfot, to come and to greet someone with a nice face. To come and to give someone with an incredible face. That in itself is the greatest chesed that a person could actually do or give to a person. Rav Dessler actually says something interesting. We heard of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of the students, one of the smallest of the students of Yonatan ben Uziel. Was a great Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the smallest of the students of Hillel HaZaken. And the Gemara in Berachot Yuzayin Amud Aleph says on Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that there was never even a goy that said shalom to him, that won him in the race to say shalom. Meaning he always greeted everybody, even the goy, no matter what. Now, if you think about it, we're talking about here an Nasi of Israel. We're talking about here one of the Gdolim that he knew Gemara, Mishnah, Maaseh Merkava, Kabbalah, everything. And no matter how much was on his back and was on his shoulders, he still took time to greet even the goy. That there was not even one goy that was able to say, I said hello to the rabbi before he greeted me. I greeted the rabbi before. It didn't exist. What does that mean? That means that he found it important that he wanted to make sure that everybody was okay, that everybody was actually enjoying that they were growing. The truth is, this we actually learned already from Yosef HaTzadik, if you remember. Yosef HaTzadik, what was his salvation? The dreams, right? With Paro. Well, why did that come about? Because he asked two people in jail, how are you doing? Why are your faces like Tisha B'Av? What's going on? The fact that Yosef HaTzadik took on upon himself to ask two goyim in the street or two goyim there in the jail, why are you guys worried? What do you have on your face? What's going on? That's why he merited the salvation, because he cared about someone else. He put someone else there. He didn't just ignore them. Nowadays, with the technology that we have, right? People are like this. Through the thing, you don't even see that there's a person behind him. Sometimes I have a doubt. Should I even say hello? Right? They're walking like this in the street, right? They don't even know, Mina Shamayim, that they're not bumping themselves. Now I think I heard they made something in Japan or something like that, or Tokyo, I don't know where it was, that you put it on top, you look like an alien. But basically you put it on top, and basically now you're able to be on your phone the entire time, and this thing is going to be like watching. So if there's going to be any barrier, like, a pole, in order that you don't hit yourself in the pole, it's going to direct you, and it's going to tell you stop, or your turn, or, you understand? That's what they had to do, because the human being became a zombie, right? They're walking zombies. So they don't even know who's around them. So sometimes I have that question, right? Somebody is a zombie, they're walking by. Do I tell them shalom? I don't know anymore, right? But why? Because people are not around. They don't care about human beings anymore, right? All their focus is so much focus in what they're doing, right, in their phones, that they're completely lost. It's a big problem. But what's interesting enough is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't have that. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai came, and he was very, very careful and cautious to make sure that even the guy in the streets, he said hello. He wanted to know how they're doing. How was everything? That was the epitome of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. The Gemara actually says in Shabbat, Kaftet Amud Aleph, when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shamayim, he found that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was busy, and he was making crowns on the letters. HaKadosh Baruch Hu went and he told them, what? In your place you don't say shalom? Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to bother HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu was trying to tell him, what? You come in, you don't say hello? Right? That's what you have to do. Immediately, you have to say hello. Right? How are you? You have to greet people. That's what you're supposed to do. There was a minhag by Ashkenazim that was brought down, that Ashkenazim used to say Boker Tov, so they used to answer Shana Tova. Yeah, and we're not talking about Rosh Hashanah time. Yeah? So what happened was, Boker Tov, Shana Tova. Where does that come from? So it's based upon the Sefer Chasidim. The Sefer Chasidim comes and he says that what happens if somebody finds a poor person in the street, and he comes and he gives them beans to eat. And then what happens is that afterwards it becomes, you flip, the wheel of fortune flipped. The poor person became rich and the rich person became poor. And now the poor person that was once poor, that now he's rich, he sees the other guy. Says the Sefer Chasidim, he's obligated to give him meat to eat, not beans. Meat. Why? Because when he gave him to eat, he didn't only give him the food to eat, he gave him the sentimental feeling that he was worth something. He gave him this feeling that he was actually a human being. And because he gave him that feeling, he has to give him one extra level. So now we understand why in Eretz Yisrael, what does it mean, Had? You say to somebody, Boker Tov, and what do they answer you? Boker Or. They don't answer the same thing, Boker Tov. They answer Boker Or. Why? You gave me that a good morning, and I'm giving you that you should have an incredible light, a morning full of light, because I'm always adding on what you did, because you showed your countenance, you showed that I'm important to you. I owe you now more than that. because it wasn't just a plate of beans that you gave me. Now you gave me the ikhpatiyut, that you care about me, that somebody's important. That's what you're supposed to do. Rav Rosenstein, he was a mashkiach of Lozma. He remembers the first day he got to the yeshiva of Kelen. And he says what happened is he was very embarrassed. He didn't even want to go into the Bet HaMidrash. All of a sudden, open the doors of Bet HaMidrash. Somebody comes out. He says, Shalom Aleichem, how are you doing? So he looks at the guy and he's thinking, listen, he must know me from somewhere, but I don't remember. Okay, good. What's your name? You want to come and eat? For sure you're hungry. Okay, he was, wow, okay. Another 2 minutes, somebody else comes out, the same thing. He says, what a coincidence. 2 people know me, but I don't remember these guys. What's going on? It only took him a little bit of time to realize that this was the Tzurat Chaim. This is the way of life. In Kelen, which was a yeshiva of Musar and Derech Eretz, and always, right, the Saba Mikelem, we bring it down all the time, right? So they were so on top of it that they wanted to make sure that everything was 100%, that they wanted to make sure that people are important. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Rav Dessler actually brings down that we say, Vaveh mekabel et kol ha'adam b'sever panim yafot. Who's the author of that Mishnah in Pirkei Avot? So the majority of us, what would we say? Who's the author of that Mishnah? No? What do you guys say? Who's the author of the Mishnah? Vaveh mekabel et kol ha'adam b'sever panim. You have to receive everybody with a happy face. Who's that? Anybody wants to unmute and answer?
That Mishnah, I will assume, would have been Rabbi Akiva, I guess, because he was always Gamzul Tovah, no?
So I would have probably said Hillel, no?
Well, yeah, actually, he says,
everybody.
He says, treat the others like you treat yourself.
Who's the one that said that? Shammai. Shammai was the one that said that, which means that says Rav Dessler, if it would have been Hillel, we would have thought, listen, this is Hillel, what do you want? But if Shammai, that he was always known as a person that was always so strict and always so and now he's the one that's going to say such a thing. So therefore what? So therefore it shows you that it's min adin. That means by law, it's not Hasidut. It's not that I want to be pious. By law, every single Jew is obligated to receive every single other person Besever panim yafot, with a beautiful smile, with something that you could have it. They once asked one of the Rabbanim, Rabbi, you're on the phone. Why are you smiling? They can't see you. He says they hear the smile, right? They could hear the smile over the phone. When a person smiles and they're talking, you could hear it. You could hear it. And that's what it's so important, right? Why is it so important? Because people have to realize that. When they come and you're smiling over the phone, people hear it. They see the smile, right? And that's what the person has to be doing. There was once a famous story with the Mashkiach Kashrut. The Mashkiach Kashrut, right? What happened is that he went to work. And every single night when they finish, they close down the factory. They come out of the factory and they leave. And they tell the security guard. The security guard comes and he tells them, listen, go back inside. Somebody's there. Okay, they go back inside, they start looking everywhere, nobody's around. They come back out, they tell the security guard, nobody's there, we're going. Said, no, go back inside, there's somebody still in there. So he said, who's still in there? He says, I know somebody's in there. Can you tell us who it is? The rabbi, the Mashkiach Kashrut. They went, Mashkiach Kashrut, rabbi. They went back inside, where did they find him? They found him in the freezer. In the olden days, the freezer was only able to be opened on the outside, not from the inside. He got locked in the freezer. They caught him just on time, because if not, he wouldn't have survived. What happened? Because of the security issues nowadays they're obligated to make that even from the inside, you're able to open up the freezer to get out. But in the olden days, it was only from the outside. So what happened? They asked the security guard, why? How did you know he was in there? He says, every single day, this rabbi would come in and he would greet me and he would tell me good morning. And every single time that he left, he made sure to find me to say goodbye. He came in this morning, but he didn't say goodbye. I knew he wouldn't leave without saying goodbye to me. So I knew he was still inside. The saying hello and goodbye is what saved this person's life. because he cared about somebody else. Somebody else was important to them. That's how it was. Rav Friedlander comes and he says that when we come and we say in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Shammai says that the obligation is not only just to your family members, it's everybody. Every single human being. And that's why the Orchot Chaim Larosh, one of the Rishonim, they come and they say, Al yu panecha zoamot neged ovrim v'shavim v'kabel otam bepanim meirim. Sometimes you're on the street, right? And then sometimes you didn't have a good day. Don't have that your face are like a face of Tisha B'Av in the middle of the street. Receive everybody with a happy face. There's only one time in the year that you could show a sad face, that's Tisha B'Av. Other than that, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as having. Why? Because we have to understand, says the Chachamim, right? That we have to understand that the face in itself is Reshut Rabim. Our face is actually public domain. Right? We cannot do such a thing. We have to receive everybody. Do you know that it once happened? Rav Lau brings this down on Pirkei Avot. And he says that the Rabbah of Nevordok, the Aruch HaShulchan, in his city, there was a Apikorsim, people that were against the religion. And what happened is that when there were people against the religion, right, they went and they said to the rabbi, he was befriending these Apikorsim. So they told Aruch HaShulchan, how are you befriending Apikorsim? It says in a pasuk in Tehillim, Halo mesanecha Hashem esna, tachlit sinas etim, right? Which means that the ones that hate you, I'm going to hate, right? The worst of all the hatred. So if so, how could it be all of a sudden, right? How could it be that, it doesn't make sense, right? How could you love them? You're supposed to hate them. So he went and he said, you're right. I have a defect. You know what my defect is? I'm not misugal. I'm not capable of hating another Jew. It doesn't exist. Which means even if it could be that he's wrong, how could you hate another Jew? It doesn't exist. This was his level. The same thing happened with Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook. That what happened was that he was befriending Chalei Shabbat Pharesia. They told him the same thing. He went and he said like this, listen to these words. It could be that I love them for no reason, right? And it could be that it's a sur to do so. But I prefer that they should tell me off in Shamayim for loving another Jew for no reason than chas v'shalom, the opposite, that they're going to tell me off for hating a Jew for no reason. Meaning for them, it was much more important that I should have ahavat chinam, even if it was a sur, prohibited, because in certain circumstances it's prohibited, than to come and have sinat chinam, when it's always prohibited. That's what they said, because they understood that how could it be? You have to love another person. You have to love another Jew. So it happened once that the Rav Yisrael Salanter met a person on Erev Kippur. And on Erev Kippur, the person was so afraid. He was fearing justice, what's going to happen, the judgment. So he started trembling. And you could tell he had a terrible face. Rav Yisrael Salanter went and he said, why am I going to lose because of your matadin? Meaning, even in a case where you are afraid, why am I going to lose? You shouldn't be losing. Just like the Chovot HaLevavot says in Shara Prishut, Salatu al panav vevlo belibo. Even if a person is suffering, he's mourning. But what? Salatu al panav. He's got a smile on his face. Do you know what once happened with the Rabbi Fran brings this down? It once happened with the Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. That what happened is one of the students of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach found him in the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning. He didn't even think about asking Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, what are you doing in the hospital? He found Rav Shlomo Zalman. He said, Rebbe, I had a baby. I think it was a boy, girl. Mazal tov, and this and that. And he was ecstatic. And then Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach left. It only happened the next day that the person realized, because it was the levaya of the wife of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. And he wanted to find out what time it was. And she passed away only a few minutes before. But Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach never actually showed it on his face. He showed so much joy and so much simcha for the bachur, but he didn't show nothing. He only cared about the other person. He was so happy. He didn't even realize it. If it wasn't for the fact that the next day it was all over the place, he would have never known. Because it's true. That's what the real message was behind. Not because somebody has a bad day, does everybody else have to suffer, right? Because of all the people around them. This is what the Chachamim were saying about that the face is showing everything. Do you know that even the value of a present has to do with the face that we're actually showing, with how we give the present? What does that mean? In Avodah Rabbi Natan, it says, how do you do that? It says, if a person is going to give a person all the presents in the world, right? But he gave it to him with a sad face, it's as if you didn't give them anything. But if you're going to come and you're going to give with a good face, even if you didn't give anything, you gave him all the presents in the world. And the Siftei Chaim comes and he explains, because the matana, the present, is not only just the value of the present, it's how you give the present. It's how are you doing it? Are you giving it, take, get lost as if here it is? Even if you gave them everything in the world, you didn't give them anything. Or is it that you gave it to them with all the love and the appreciation and the joy? So all of a sudden now it's a completely different world. And that's why Tosfot in Kiddushin says the exact same thing happens with Kibud Avayim. When we come and we respect our parents, there's some people that could give steaks and everything to their parents and they don't get any reward. Because they gave it to them as if to say, like just here, take it, keep your mouth shut, that's it. And then you have other people that they're giving beans because they don't have anything else to give. And they get all the reward for Kibud Avayim because they're giving it with such a smile. Rabbeinu Yonah actually says that the same halacha applies to guests. When guests come to your house, you have to be very, very careful to make sure that you're always happy. Because if all of a sudden something's going to happen, you're going to show that you're a sad face, they're going to think that it's because they're bothering you. They're going to think it's because of them. So you always have to show them that you're the happiest person, that they're there, in order to make sure that they're very, very happy. But now we have the Gemara in Batra, the Yod Amud Bet. The Gemara says, Kol tzedakah v'chesed sheYisrael osin ba'olam hazeh. It makes a big shalom and it makes great things. Rav Friedlander says because the ikar of the chesed is because we're actually coming and we're minimizing ourselves. Chesed means that I'm not egoistic, I'm not egocentric, I'm not self-centered. I have other people around me. Chesed means that I look outside of the box, outside of who I am. What do you need? How do I help you? Because that is true chesed. When we're able to look towards other people in order to actually come and realize what's happening. When a person's haughty and they're egoistic, that is actually the shoresh, that's the roots of all of the bad midot in the world. Everything, all the bad midot in the world, that is the shoresh of being haughty, thinking only about ourselves and not thinking about other people. The Gaon actually said that if you actually realize the majority of the mitzvot in the Torah is l'sameach et habriot, is to make that other people should be happy, right? Which is something incredible, because the Gemara in Sotah Yudalet says the beginning of the Torah is Chesed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made clothing for Adam Rishon and Chava. The end of the Torah is Chesed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he buries Moshe Rabbeinu. So he comes and he says, the Saba Mikelem, a book. When you want to find out what is a book, what do you find out? If the beginning of the book is talking about Chesed and the end of the book is talking about the Chesed, so you know that the entire book is talking about Chesed. So the exact same thing with the Torah. If the entire Torah, the beginning is Chesed, the end of Chesed, that means the main contents, everything that we're talking about, is always going to be also Chesed as well. So now we have to actually also understand that this is not only between interpersonal relationships, it's also between us and our family as well. Because the biggest chesed that a person has to do, says the Siftei Chaim, he brings this down from Rav Dessler in his book on Shalom Bayit, is also to be sever panim yafot to your wife and to your children, or to the husband. Because chesed always starts at home. If you remember, I always bring down Rav Pinkus. Rav Pinkus says that after 120, they come up and they ask us, did you do chesed? And everyone comes and they do tons of chesed. There's now chesed going on galore over here in Surfside, with people helping out right, left, center, and everything. And they're helping for hours. And then you ask them 1 second, do they do chesed at home? Are they at home doing chesed with their wife, with their children, with everything? And usually the answer is no. And then you tell them, everything that you did is worthless. Because if you don't do chesed at home, it's worthless that you're doing the chesed outside. Because chesed starts at home. Just the majority of people, they like for the show, so they do it on the outside, and they don't actually neglect, and they don't do anything inside in the home. So therefore, he went and he said, right, that if they did do chesed at home, so then they count all of the chesed that was being done, right, throughout the entire time. So he comes and he says, we always have to show that we care about people. How do you care about people? You come home, it's a big smile, it's true, you had a hard day at work, things were up and down, back, forth. but you care. You're showing your appreciation. You're showing what it is the importance of another human being and how insensitive you are on everything else. Kam Chachamim, and they say that it is very important. Arizal HaKadosh used to say, we have to say, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha before we start Shachrit, because if you love your fellow friend, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will accept all your tefillot. It's very important for us just to understand that we have to be very cautious. During these 3 weeks, we have to start being marbim shalom. How do we have avat chinam? So we already explained chesed, but it's not only just chesed. Sometimes just ichpatiyut, that we care. We're there for other people. Tova marbim shinayim bechavero, smile, say hello, say good morning, show that the person's there, that they're alive, that there's something there. But now I'm going to finish off with the following concept, which is very, very important. Rav Zilberstein says that Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he has to go to war with Og. Who is this Og? This Og is Og Melech HaBashan. He was zochet to live from the time of Noach, during the time of the Mabul, until Moshe Rabbeinu. That's a long time. And the question is why? And why was Moshe Rabbeinu afraid? So the Yonatan ben Uziel comes and he says, he brings a Yerushalmi. And he says the reason why he was afraid was because he did chesed with Abraham and Sarah. What was the chesed that he did? He went and he gave them a compliment. He went and he told them that you guys are compared to big trees with the roots in the water. But then afterwards he made a mistake. And he went and he told them, however, though, the trees are not making fruits. You don't have children. From the fact that he complimented Abraham and Sarah, he was able to live so many hundreds of years. But the fact that he went and he said something negative, that they didn't have fruits, the fruits of Abraham and Sarah were going to kill him because he said that. Which means that here you have a person that he gave a compliment. And because he gave a compliment, all of a sudden everything changed, right? Look how important it is, right? Look how important it is for ourselves, right? You go to a person, you say, fortunate are you? Look at your parents, Baruch Hashem, look how he's sitting and he's learning, right? Or you see somebody having atzlacha, you come and you say something to them about how it is, or you say something how they're davening or how they're coming on time, how they're learning, and you compliment whether it's the spouse to the wife or the wife to the spouse or things like that, and all of a sudden you've changed everything. If you realize the Malachim, the first thing that they did when they came, right? What was the first thing that they did? They went and they told Avraham Avinu, where's Sarah, your wife? They didn't know, they knew exactly where she was. They wanted to show him a compliment. They wanted him to realize, look how tsanua she is. She's always in the tent. She's nowhere else. She's not out on the going out. She's always in the tent. She's always there. But they wanted to do that. And there's a beautiful story, which I must say, even though I wasn't able to find it inside, because I don't have the sefer, it's Tuchai Abiu, but it's an incredible story. The story basically goes as follows. There was, right, an avrech, yeah, but he was a young rabbi, yeah, and every single time he used to go to Beit Midrash, he always used to see a boy there, sitting and learning and learning and learning, and the rabbi was impressed. This boy is mamash, he just doesn't stop, and he's always there, and he's always learning, and so he says, you know what, he's going to follow him home. He wants to see what family, who it is. He comes and he follows the boy home. Yeah, after following the boy home, what happens is all of a sudden he knocks on the door. Yeah, so waiting, starts knocking on the door again. Finally, third time, finally they open up the door. And then he comes and he says, so it's you. And everyone's afraid. What did their son do now? He comes and says, it's you. So they said, what? What did he do? What happened? And they're all nervous. And he says, do you know what a child that you have? This child is always sitting and learning, and he has respect for everybody. He puts his books back, and he does this, and he does that. And they were like this. Their eyes lightened up. It was light like daytime. They were, wow. They said they thanked him very, very much. Right? He came, he told them everything, and then he left. Okay. A few days later, 2 days, 3 days later, this young avrech, this rabbi, he gets a phone call. This is happening in Bnei Brak, by the way. Yeah, he gets a phone call. He answers. It's one of the bigger shivas there. He tells him, I need to have a meeting with you. Come to my office. He comes into the office and he stands up for him. The shiva stands up for him and he hugs him and he says, what happened? He says, you don't know what you just did. What did I do? He even forgot. He went to the boys. Hey, he forgot. 2-3 days later, he doesn't remember what he did. What did I do? He goes, do you know what you did? He says, no. He says, do you know that this couple have been having problems on Shalom Bayit for years and years and years? They were on the verge of divorce, I don't know how many times. Ready already to give the get, ready to do everything. And I was working for them with years of Shalom Bayit and investing time and energy and this and that. What I wasn't able to accomplish in years, you accomplished with one compliment. That's what you were able to accomplish. He says, you know why? Because when the couple went and they heard the beautiful things that you had to say about their child, they said they must be doing something right. There must be something here. And therefore they decided that they're going to work all their utmost to give everything in order to stay together. But they were already, that's it. They were already, there was the straw that broke the camel's back. They already decided, that's it. And they only came back together because of you. Just because of one action, one compliment that you were able to give to another person, to another Jew. You saved the marriage and you saved generations of, you know how it is when you have broken marriages, about what happens with the children and the grandchildren, and it continues going. Everything because of what happens. Nowadays that everything is all broken, right? It's the disposable generation. So you have disposable marriages as well. Everything's disposable, right? You didn't like it, throw them out. It's free, private and free returns. It comes easy, goes easy, right? You do a free returns and that's it. And then you take another one, right? Hopefully they will also come in 2 days. Question is, are you able to give it back? Maybe it has a time warranty or not, right? To give it back. But this in essence is actually just to show us the importance of what it is, a compliment. Number one that we learned today, which was very important, was the concept about that we have to love, avat chinam. This is the 3 weeks we have to love people. How do we love people? So you're right, chesed, 100%. But chesed can be done in many forms. The greatest chesed is showing somebody that they're important, that you care about them, that there's somebody around them, that they're feeling it. How many people have been saved of many different crises just because people care? You give them a phone call, you give them words of courage, you give a compliment. All these things, a smile, all these things make a person worth millions of dollars. And that's what we are supposed to be able to do for our fellow Jews. That's what we're supposed to do for everybody. If we're only going to actually internalize this message about complimenting people, loving people, helping people in a time of need, it always starts at home and then it continues flourishing out where? Bezrat outside, Bezrat Hashem, we should be able to be zocheh to have the Mashiach Sikenu Yavemenu. Amen, Bezrat Hashem.